Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome back to our coaching series. I'm happy you're here. So this is lesson 3. So we've had 2 lessons this week, right? And this is our last one for the week in our How to Stop Overeating coaching series. So I'm very excited that you're back. Thank you for being here. As always, feel free to ask questions and make it interactive. So to recap, what have we done this week? Monday, we talked about honoring your hunger. Wednesday, we talked about feeling your fullness. And the lesson today is about the satisfaction factor, okay? So all of these things are just really, really valuable tools for you to have to eliminate overeating, okay? So, and I always encourage you guys to pick and choose what's going to work for you. But these are just really good tools to be aware of when it comes to what you can do to combat overeating, okay? So how do the lessons that we discussed so far this week, how do those apply to today? So when we honor our hunger, right, when we eat when we're hungry, we're going to be a lot more satisfied with our food, right? When we eat when we're moderately hungry, we're able to really enjoy the food. When we feel our fullness, right, when we feel we're getting really full, it's going to be harder for us to be very satisfied with our food. It's going to be harder for us to enjoy it because we're getting physically uncomfortable, right? Being very full is not an ideal state to maximize the satisfaction factor that you're getting out of your food, okay? So you want to think about your hunger and fullness signals and how those are going to influence the satisfaction factor for you, how much satisfaction you're getting out of your food, okay? So what we're going to talk about today is why it's even important to be satisfied with your food, to be satisfied with the food that you eat and your eating choices, and how does that even help us to not overeat? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are. You're going to learn a lot. And as always, let me know what questions you have, okay? So when we think about why it's even important that we enjoy our food, I mean, think about a time when you've really craved something, okay? Let's say you're really craving a piece of chocolate cake, okay? I use this example with my clients sometimes. So I'm really craving chocolate cake, but I'm not gonna let myself have it because chocolate cake is bad, and if I eat chocolate cake, I'm gonna put on weight, and I can't give in to temptations, right? I'm trying to be good, I'm not gonna eat the chocolate cake. So we keep thinking about the chocolate cake, but we keep denying ourselves the chocolate cake. So what do? Go through the cupboards, like, oh, I'll have this like 3-point Weight Watchers dessert. You know, maybe that'll help me feel satisfied. When that doesn't scratch your itch, you eat like a handful of cherries, a couple of blueberries, and then you're like, maybe I'll just have this like fat-free, like chocolate sundae thing, right? And so you're like trying to scratch that itch, and what ends up happening is that you eat a bunch of random foods, and then ultimately you just end up eating the chocolate cake anyway, because you're like, well, forget it, I already blew it, right? So over time, we're just consuming so many more calories than if you just let yourself have the thing in the first place, okay? You've got to just let yourself have the thing and be done with it, and stop trying to negotiate with yourself, okay? So one thing that I need to drive home today, you guys have to believe that you deserve to enjoy your food. You deserve to enjoy your food, okay? You do not have to eat any foods that don't taste good to you. You can be perfectly healthy and meet all of your wellness goals without ever eating something that doesn't taste good to you. So why do people eat foods that don't taste good to them? Well, a lot of times they think they have to, right? They're like, this is healthy food, this is nutrition. You know, people equate like health with sacrifice. Does not have to be that way at all, right? And this is my same philosophy on exercise, okay? I have devoted my career to exercise. I have almost a decade of experience in the fitness industry, and I still maintain this stance that you do not need to be doing intense exercise. Like, health does not equal punishment, right? Meeting your goals does not have to coincide with punishing yourself, okay? So that goes for food, it goes for fitness. You don't have to be eating foods that you hate just to get some perceived desired result, right? And I think a lot of times we romanticize that desired result, right? We place it on a pedestal. And so we're putting ourselves like through all these undesirable things because we're like, I'm going to get to this goal weight, or I'm going to get to this, ideal body. And in reality, it's like, you might not even get there because your expectations are too high. So why don't you just enjoy the process? Okay. So we have to believe that we deserve to enjoy our food. We have to believe that we are worthy of finding pleasure in our food. Okay. I cannot overstate that enough, because that is step one to having a very normal and healthy relationship with food. Okay. So once you believe that you deserve to enjoy your food, you're no longer going to be eating foods that aren't satisfying you. So are you guys familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Is anybody familiar with that? So this has come up for me, gosh, I remember learning about it like in high school when I was taking college classes when I was still in high school. I think might have been when I first learned about this. And it keeps coming up. And the idea is that when our needs are not met, we will do whatever it takes to get that need met, okay? So a lot of times I need to ask my clients, what do you need? What is it that you think you need? And you'll be shocked at how hard it is for them to even articulate that, right? Because we are not used to tuning into what we need. And especially women are not used to asking for what we need and standing up for what we need, right? So what happens when our needs are not met? We'll do whatever it takes. Eventually, right, when we continue this cycle of deprivation, we start doing extreme things to get what we need. And you might have even done this without even realizing it. Have you taken a trip or taken a long drive or gone on a vacation just to get some amazingly delicious food? Have you gone out of your way, driven out of your neighborhood to get something you really want, right? And this is just for food. Think about career, relationships, like what happens when your needs are not met, right? What happens? Over time, this builds up into a very negative cycle. You start to feel like when you're not getting what you need, satisfaction equals happiness. Like when we're not satisfied, we're not happy. And so, again, like this applies to all areas of your life. It's got to apply to food. All right. So when you think about what I said about the chocolate cake example, if you just allow yourself to just eat the thing and be done with it, you're going to be satisfied. You're going to just enjoy it. No guilt, right? No guilt. You just enjoy it. And you'll see it takes much less food to decide that you've had enough. When you allow yourself to have something satisfying, it takes much less food for you to decide that you've had enough. Think about eating like a really rich chocolate brownie, right? Sometimes you eat like a couple bites and you're like, it's so rich, I can't, right? And you just push it away. It takes a lot less for you to have that itch scratch, for you to have that need met. And so think about it this way. Satisfied now, eat less later. All right, write that down. Satisfied now, eat less later. So knowing what you like to eat and believing that you have the right to enjoy food, these are key factors in a lifetime of maintaining normal weight without dieting. Okay, so this is how we maintain our body's natural set point, which is the weight that it loves to rest at. It's the weight that it wants to be at. So one thing I mentioned there was knowing what you like to eat, why it was important to know what you like to eat. So if you are a person who likes to take action, who likes assignments, I have a homework assignment for you. And a lot of times this is where we start with my clients. Make a list of foods you like to eat. Just make a big list of all the foods that you like to eat, okay? This can be helpful for a number of reasons. It helps you to see, wow, there are so many foods that I like to eat. Like, I have so many options when it comes to food, right? Or if you have a very short list, then we have some work to do with tuning into what you really like and understanding what you really like. Maybe it's been so long since you've had food that you really like, right? So first we need to get clear on what the foods are that we like. You'll see that you have a lot of options, and then you'll see if there are foods on that list, or I guess you'll see if there are not foods on that list that you eat a lot, right? So maybe there's something you eat a lot that you didn't put on that list. And then I'm going to ask you, like, why didn't you put it on the list? You don't like it. So why do you eat it? If you don't like it, don't eat it. If you love it, savor it. Okay? So that's a good place to start. What do I like to eat? And then what I mentioned earlier in the chocolate cake example was about how we will go looking for that food to satisfy us when we don't allow ourselves to have what we really want and what we really need. So we'll have like something that we think is good for us, like a Weight Watchers like dessert, or one of those like sugar-free ice cream bars, right? Be careful with these foods. Be really careful with these foods. Anything that says fat-free, sugar-free, right? This is a marketing tactic that allows people to feel better about the foods that they're eating. But what happens is these are just error foods. They're filler foods. Even psychologically, you'll think that you can have more of them, and then you just end up, putting on weight or having extra calories in your diet that you do not need. So, and the other thing is, like, so many of those things are not even good for you. And I kind of alluded to reading ingredients on Wednesday. We can get into that nutrition piece more later if you want to, but like if you look at the ingredients and you can't pronounce most of them, like it's not good for you. And that's what happens a lot with anything that's marketed as healthy diet food, right? Sugar-free, fat-free, whatever it is. But one way that we can feel more satisfied with our food, and I have mentioned this in every lesson this week, and it is worth repeating, is thinking about the concept of macronutrients and then placing variety in this same category. Okay, so macros are carbs, fats, and proteins. Variety. Those are the 4 things that we need to incorporate in our days, in our meals, in our snacks that are going to keep us full and keep us satisfied. Okay, so I'll repeat that so you guys can write it down. The things that our body needs every day to feel full, to feel satisfied, are carbs, fats, proteins, and variety. All right? What happens when we don't have variety is we do get into this state of deprivation, right? Where we feel like I'm always eating chicken and rice, and even if like psychologically you're not really noticing that you don't have variety, your body's going to start to pick up on it, and it's going to start to crave a lot of things and obsess over a lot of things, right, that you're not having in your diet. So you want to think about how you can incorporate a lot of variety into the foods that you have. All right, is this making sense to you guys? Go ahead and ask questions if you guys have anything that comes up here. All right. So I'll go ahead and recap and just reiterate some of the things that we talked about so far, right? With the satisfaction factor, why it's important, and how that kind of helps us to avoid overeating, right? It's when we're satisfied, it takes much less food to decide that we've had enough, right? So just to review, you want to think about how you can be really satisfied with the food that you eat, right? So that you're not just overeating and looking for something that's going to satisfy you. So another thing, a couple things that can contribute to feeling satisfied with what you eat is eliminating distractions when you're eating, right? Engaging in mindful and conscious eating. When we are very distracted when we're eating, what you'll find is you miss out on the eating experience, and then eating needs to be repeated. Okay? So if you eat when you're very distracted, you just blow past your meal without even really realizing what you just did, the eating, you're going to need to repeat that eating again, okay? Because you weren't satisfied, right? So eliminate distractions, try to set up a very pleasing environment for yourself, clean the table, put out a pretty placemat, maybe play some, nice music that you like. Just think about what environment you can create that's going to make the whole experience very calming and satisfying for you, right? No fighting at the dinner table. Think about things that you can do that you might need to implement in your family to make sure that you're feeling satisfied when you eat, okay? And this is a big deal, you guys, because if you're not feeling satisfied in your meals, you're just gonna chronically overeat. Every night you're getting snacky, right? So think about the times of day when you really get snacky. So I usually hear, sometimes people are say that they're starving mid-morning or in the afternoon, right? They'll get snacky. Later on at night, they'll want to eat everything. So it could be because your meals are not satisfying enough. You're not feeding yourself enough in your meals. So think about those 4 factors that I mentioned, right? Macros and variety. And how that will lead you to ultimately feeling satisfied and feeling less snacky. Listen, there's nothing wrong with having snacks, okay? Don't be so hard on yourself. I don't know why we think that snacking is like such a terrible thing. It's not an indictment on your character. You guys go crazy over making your food choices mean something about you. Your food choices have nothing to do with your morality. They have nothing to do with your ethical code, which is why I think it's so funny when people will say they ate something. I gave in and I ate the bowl pasta and then I felt so guilty after. And I'll be like, did you steal the food? Did you run in and take that food from a family of 4? Then what is this guilt about, right? Guilt implies that you did something that broke some type of code or law. Guilt has no place when it comes to food, okay? Knock it off. You guys are way too hard on yourselves. So stop feeling guilty about your food choices. That emotion has no place here, okay? And the guiltier you feel, the less you're gonna be satisfied, right? The less you're letting yourself enjoy the food. Okay, so that is a really important point there, you guys, that I want you to reflect on this weekend, is how often are you feeling guilty about your food choices? And how can you reframe that, right? How can you have more positive self-talk? It's not a matter of guilt, right? My food choices do not make me good or bad or gross or clean, right? We need to start seeing our food choices in a more neutral light, okay? And if you do this, you get to a point where a peach is morally equivalent to a piece of peach pie, okay? When I say those 2 things right now, how do you feel about them? Immediately you probably think like peach, fruit, healthy. Peach pie, oh, I'm gonna gain weight, right? There has to not be this like good, bad, right? It's all okay. It's all okay. So the satisfaction factor, right? Today's lesson is encouraging you guys to know that it's okay to have the food that you want. In fact, it's important to just have the food that you want so that you don't keep looking for the next thing to satisfy you, okay? Ask yourself, what do I need? How can I meet that need? And so, I gave you guys an assignment to make a list of the foods you like. And then also, before you're about to make an eating decision, think about what is it that I really want right now? Really take a minute to step back and say, what do I feel like eating? What would smell good, feel good in my mouth? Think about all the senses, am I wanting something crunchy? Am I wanting something smooth, something warm, something cold, right? Think about what you really want, and then don't be afraid to get that thing, okay? And so I think people think that if they do this, they're going to be out of control. And they're like, if I just let myself have whatever I want all the time, then I'm just going to eat chocolate for weeks on end. I understand why you think that, but I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. And I probably say this every lesson, but our bodies are brilliant. Your body's not gonna let you just have chocolate all the time, right? And maybe you do that even for like a week, and it feels scary and it feels bad, but that's just part of the process, right? You have to allow yourself to have what you want and know that those things are available to you at all times, right? And this is more a matter of habituation. What we talked about on, I think it was Wednesday, increased exposure to a food is going to decrease the appeal of that food, okay? That's one reason variety, again, is so important. Increased exposure to a food just decreases the allure, decreases the appeal, decreases the satisfaction we get from it, okay? So that's another reason you don't have to be afraid of letting yourself have the thing that you want, because you're not going to want that thing forever and ever and ever. There's going to come a point where you're like, I have control over this food. Like, I can have it when I want it, and I can have a bite of it, and then I'm not obligated to finish the rest, right? So think about that too. Think about allowing yourself to have the thing that you want, and don't be afraid that that's going to make you just go out of control, okay? It's not. Your body's going to tell you after a week of chocolate that it really would love a cucumber, or it would love a piece of whole grain bread, or it would love to eat a chicken breast or a taco, right? It's gonna want some more sustenance, all right? So have no fear when it comes to this exercise. You'll get it, you'll do great. All right, let's recap a little bit. Now would be a good time to ask questions if you guys have any. But I wanna reiterate, knowing what you like to eat and believing that you have the right to enjoy that food are key factors in a lifetime of maintaining normal weight without dieting, okay? So this is all, again, going to help us to stop overeating, all right? So I'll put together some lessons for y'all next week. I know some of you were interested in emotional eating. You can raise your hand if you want me to teach on that next week. And we'll be talking a lot about diets, and I'll clear up some information for you guys. Again, something I really believe in is subtractive psychology, which is I'm not adding more things to your lesson plan that you have to do. I'm not giving you more food rules. I'm actually going to be taking them away and stripping down all of these things that we've been taught to believe, okay? So instead of adding a bunch of overwhelming new things to you, I'm going to just eliminate a bunch of food rules and nutrition facts that you've heard that you don't need to worry about, okay? So I hope that gives you like a bit of a, okay, like I can do this. It's a breather. It's about clearing out some things, right? A lot of times I think we think that we need to add a bunch of practices. Like I have to meditate, I have to move my body more, I have to do this, I have to do that, I should do this, I should do that, right? So I'm going to take the opposite approach and say, you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do this thing that you think you need to do, right? What are the things that are going to help us live our best lives, okay? All right, guys, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.